Welcome to the Coach's Corner, part of the Iron Sharpening Iron universe. I'm your host, Davina Lyons, also known as Mama Lyons, and this is where real conversations meet real growth. Here we explore what it means to rise through reflection, resilience, and purpose. One story, one insight, one breakthrough at a time. Whether you're a coach, a leader, or simply on your own personal development journey, this is your space to reflect, identify, stand, and emerge stronger than before. So grab your notebook, take a deep breath, and let's rise together, right here in the Coach's Corner. Welcome to the Coach's Corner. I'm your host, Davina Lyons, also known as Mama Lyons. And today's conversation is one that every educator, parent, school leader, and student advocate needs to hear. My guest today is Kylah Seabrooks, founder of Seabrooks Educational Consulting, creator of Middle School is Messy, and author of the book Middle School is Messy: What Every Teacher, Parent, and Leader Should Know About the Middle Years. Kylah is an educational consultant, speaker, author, school administrator, and middle grades advocate. Her work focuses on helping educators, leaders, and families better understand student behavior, school culture, and adult-student relationships. She believes that behind every behavior is a story, and that when adults look more deeply, we can support students with greater connection, consistency, and purpose. What makes Kylah's story even more powerful is that she was once considered an at-risk student herself. Her own educational journey was not always easy, yet she rewrote that story, turning it into a calling to help others understand the messy, meaningful middle school years. Today, we're talking about behavior, leadership, school culture, connection, and what every adult needs to know about supporting students during one of the most misunderstood stages of development. Please help me welcome Kylah Seabrooks to the Coach's Corner. Kylah, how are you?
I am well, Davina. How about you?
Great, great, great. I'm really excited because you know you're my tribe, right?
Yes.
Middle school is messy, and I can't wait to talk about it because I've been about it for the last 12, 13 years now, going on 13 years.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I couldn't think of a better person to chop it up with. And definitely, I know you're going to bring it because we've had some great conversations already. I was
Yes.
excited to get to know you. We share a little bit of history in terms of school district and all that good stuff.
Hmm.
So let's get into it.
Absolutely.
You know, let's just start out with I love middle school is messy. So let's talk about that because that makes you laugh kind of, at first when you hear it, you're like you chuckle because it is true. But what does that phrase mean to you? Break that down for us.
So when you first hear it, like you said, especially if those are your people, right? And you know your
Yeah.
tribe. So when you hear you like middle school is definitely messy. But for me, once I got in there, the messiness is just their growth, their identity shifts, their mistakes, their discovering friendships, it's having attitude, it's all of those things in a big ball of confusion and sometimes chaos rolled into one. And I say that it's messy, but I also say on the other side that it can be manageable because it is. We're dealing with a lot of different things that are happening all at once. And the messiness behind it doesn't mean that it's broken. That messiness is it's that they're becoming, right? And so you, as well as being a middle school educator yourself, that they can break some things, okay? But breaking things does not mean that they have to stay broken. So
That's right. That's right. That's right. And I know I love my middle schoolers. I wouldn't want to teach any other, I don't even want to teach anything but eighth grade, to be honest, because
Oh, wow.
there's something so special about I get them before they go to high school. The downside for me a lot of times is I only have that 1 year to really get to know them.
Gotcha.
Whereas if I taught seventh grade, then I would maybe see them around during eighth grade and see them mature a little bit more. But
Okay.
no, I've taught seventh grade and I would prefer to just stick with my eighth graders.
I get you because like when you think about it, like traditional middle schools, right? You
Yeah,
have your sixth, seventh, and eighth graders, and they all come with a different set of phenomenon to them. So your sixth graders are just coming in from elementary school if they've been in a traditional K-5. So there's that transition piece. Your
yeah,
seventh graders have had time to kind of transition over, and they're really feeling themselves.
yes, they are.
And then, like you said, your eighth graders are getting more independent and think they know everything, but there is, kind of they don't get into like the sillier type of behaviors because they think
Right,
they're grown now, they're going to high school. Oh, I know
right,
everything.
right,
So I
exactly.
get it. There's transition pieces in both of the sixth graders and the eighth graders, and then your seventh graders. Sometimes they're in the middle of the middle, if you
Yeah,
will.
yeah. I know. I was so funny because we went through this phase of 6, 7,
Yes.
and so like I kept hearing, and by the time I caught on and I started doing it back to them, they're like, no, that's
Yep.
done. That's
Yep.
done. Stop that now, Miss Lyons. Don't do that again. And I'm like, but I still hear the other kids. Well, that's because they're sixth graders. That's because they're seventh graders.
Oh
That's
boy.
they can still say it, but we don't say
Right.
that anymore. I'm like,
Right.
what? So
When you throw something in their face, how they get, they're like, oh no, y'all can't do. Yes, we can, and
yes,
it stops it. You know what I'm saying?
absolutely. I was saying, but some things they crack me up because some things they'll say, okay, you should never say that, like ever, like skibbity toilet thing.
Oh yeah, we went through that. We definitely went through that. Skibbity toilet, the
Skibbity toilet.
Sigma Riz, the
Yes,
Aura. I mean, yes,
yes,
yes.
yes, absolutely. And my team is resilience. You wouldn't guess that, right? But but I said we had a sign that said resilience, RIZZ, and the kids are like, okay, okay, okay. They kind of like that,
Yes.
but again, stay in your lane, old
Yeah.
people. That's
Well,
really
you know what? You gotta lean into it.
yeah.
When you think about like fads have came and they have went, right?
Mhm.
And I'm pretty sure back in the day when we were in school, there was something we were saying, and the teachers are like, oh my God, stop saying, but you gotta lean into it rather than, see it
Yeah,
personally, just lean into it. So like
yeah,
resilience, I like
yeah. Resilience. Well, and back in our day, the only thing I can still remember that now I say it and people look at me like I'm crazy. That's tight. That's tight. Do you
yeah,
remember that one?
I still say that.
It's me too. And the kids are like, why are you saying that? Stop. But anyway, hey, we all have our things. So
Absolutely.
speaking of our kiddos, let's talk about behavior because that's the
Absolutely.
one thing that everybody references, right? And you often say behind every behavior is a story. And
Mhm.
I absolutely agree with you. I say the same thing. All behaviors communication is my thing.
Mhm.
So how did that belief become such a central part of the work that you do today?
It became a central part because once I became an administrator, I started seeing behavior from the other side. Okay,
Mhm,
so
mhm.
that is very different from when you're a teacher. Like things are happening in your classroom, and you kind of know the why of how the behavior starts, right? But on the administrative side, all I get is, the one sided story sometimes comes from the teacher. So I don't know about all of the previous behavior, the antecedent, what really happened, prior
Mhm.
to the student either coming to my office or me coming to the classroom to, kind of figure out what's going on. And so I know that it's easy for adults to just respond depending on what it is. If it's
Absolutely.
something like, it's like a combat, hand-to-hand combat type of battle, and you guys are sparring with words, like, I mean, your human side says, let me respond. And you keep it PC, you get what I'm saying? But
Yes.
the other professional side of you says, I got to keep my job, right?
That's right.
But I say that because we're humans, and because it's easy for us to respond, I get that, but we sometimes have to realize our students don't come in to school with a hidden agenda. They do not.
No.
As much as some of us want to kind of have that vibe, our students don't come in with a hidden agenda. And there is a lot that our students come into the school building that they're carrying that leads to some of the behaviors that we see. And, just some basics. It's like, did you eat breakfast, today? Did you get a good night's sleep? Sometimes asking those questions allows you to get to the root cause of why the student walked into the classroom immediately with an attitude. Because when you're walking into the classroom, I'll even go here. If I'm walking into my job, and I'm going to say me as a teacher, the first thing, I don't want to hear my administrator say, did you read my email? Did you read my email? First of all, I just got to work. Okay. No, I don't, because my contract hours is from 9 to 5. You know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
But when we think about it, if you think about it in those terms, and we realize that sometimes those are the things that we do to the students.
Absolutely.
Again, they're humans. They may be tiny in some way, shape, or form, but I look at it, the platform that I stand on is, if we say we treat others like we want to be treated, that does include the students that we're servicing as well, even though that they can get on the, they can get on the bad side, but that premise includes them as well. So
absolutely, I totally agree with you. I have a program called Compassion Without Collapse, and that what you're talking about is that moment, that split second when you encounter a kid, how you respond to them, based on, you don't even know where they're coming from. So you have to take a moment and reflect. That's where my whole RISE thing comes in. You have to reflect, identify, stand, and emerge. But what that's about is helping teachers, because to your point, they're human. Yep. And I know I have, over the years, I struggled with groupthink when they all come at you at the same time with certain behaviors. There's a lot of things that they'll do, but they're smart enough to understand that any attention is better than no attention. And I caught on, I don't know, maybe my 4th or 5th year of teaching, I would tell them in the beginning of the year, if you really want my attention, you don't have to get it in a negative way, because all you have to do, I love to talk. I love to talk to you. I have no problem with hanging out with you. If you want to come have lunch with me, I'm good with that, but you don't, there's nothing you have to do that takes you outside of, yourself just to get my attention.
I want to add to that, because when you say that, what I hear it is like, that's a skill set that has to be built in them. You know what I mean? They don't have the immediate skill set to be able to have that conversation. And then when we think about the mode of communication and the methods of communication that they use nowadays, they don't do a lot of face-to-face, talking to each other. A lot of their conversation is with their handheld computer device.
That's right? That's right.
So actually knowing that someone wants to talk to them, that brings a whole, like you said, sometimes we can go on a whole nother tangent and conversation about that, because they actually have to know that, I do want to hear about what it is that you want to say. I do want to amplify your student voice, if you will. And I am here to listen. And I think that when we show up in these spaces and we tell students that, yes, we're here to educate you. Yes, we're here to teach you. That's not all we're here to do. We will listen, and some of them don't feel that way. And I'll just be honest, because we live, some of us don't give that off either,
Well, that's what I was going to say, is that they will, it's, we have a lot of professional developments. We are taught a lot of things, but one of the things I think that is very difficult for administrators to pass down to educators, teachers in the classroom, is that compassion piece. That's something that has to be authentically, genuinely coming from the individual as a teacher.
Absolutely.
And I always think about every one of those people. I have 30 plus in my classroom 4 times a day.
That's a lot.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
But I always think about each and every one of them has someone at home that loves them.
That part.
They matter. That's somebody's child. And I think about mine. So what I do is, I mean, he's a grown man now, but I think about my son. I see my son in a lot of the like the boys, and I think about what his teachers probably went through. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
already know.
Same.
But that compassion is a huge part of being an educator. It really is. And
Yeah.
the other thing that I did in the very beginning, when I first started teaching, um, I realized that I was showing up for me. I was showing up for me, and I think you relate to that because I think you also um, you shared that you were once considered an at-risk student. So when I look at when I think about what I needed with what I was dealing with as a child in my home and the things that I experienced, I
Mm-hmm.
needed a teacher that could look at me and see it without me saying it.
Right.
And so I realized that that's a superpower that most teachers, especially compassionate teachers,
I like that.
will be able to do. You can look at your child and you know something's not right. You
I
might
like
not know the specifics, but you know something's going on there.
I
And
like
that and many people, don't realize the weight of that on an educator,
right.
you know?
I'm gonna answer this question. I'm gonna go back to something that you said. I made a couple of notes because like being an at-risk student, you
Hmm.
feel invisible and you don't feel seen.
Right.
And I wasn't the at-risk student that was a behavioral issue. Like I
No.
didn't present with a lot of external things that you could see.
Okay.
So a lot of the risks that came along with me were internal. Like you said, things that were going on at home that
Hmm.
at that time I really could not identify and name.
Right.
And nor did I, because I didn't want to, I didn't want to really accept, some of the
Hmm.
things that were happening. And
Hmm.
so that experience shaped who I am today because it allows me to do exactly what you said. I'm gonna use your phrase, have that superpower to be able to
Yeah.
see those students.
Yeah.
Because again, some of us that don't have that lens, and I'm not saying that in a bad way, some of us that don't have that lens tend to overlook students that present a certain way.
Yeah.
Okay. So if I am coming in and I am presenting as this loud, boisterous type of, I just this the student, if you will, okay, quote unquote, the student, some people won't go as far as to see what's really going on with that student. Okay. And
Right.
that's the student, like you said, attention seeking, but they're doing it in a negative way. But
Right.
then you also have that student that comes in, presents as very withdrawn, doesn't say a lot, might be the good student in your class. Okay.
Right.
But has a lot of internal things going on that just because it doesn't present in a way that we can see, they're overlooked. And so I'm going back again because you giving me all of the things, right? That compassion piece. I just feel like, first of all, the idea of teacher, educator, whatever it is that you want to call it, is servant leadership. Okay. I believe that people are called to do this work. And there are some people that, oh, I want to be a teacher. I want to change the world. I want to have impact. And you didn't get that calling. So when you get
Right.
in a classroom, it's a whole different story,
That's right.
right? It's a
That's
whole
right.
different story. But it does not erase the compassion that you have to have when you walk through the door. Because you said, I wrote this down too, because I was like, oh, she giving me the good stuff. Because it's something that I said, it's like, when we met, I was like, oh, I found my person. I found my person. I,
Likewise.
I like to think about, like you said, somebody's entire essence and whole world walks through those doors every single day, regardless of how we feel about them.
That's
Okay.
right. That's
And
right.
I consider the
Mhm.
opportunity to be able to be in front of, instruct, teach, supervise your kids a privilege. That's not a right. You
That's
know
right.
what I'm saying? That's not a
Mm.
right, because I have 3 kids. One has already graduated, 2 are still in school. I expect the same level of compassion. Okay. I'm going to just be real. I expect when my kids are with you that they don't come home and feel like my teacher does not like me. Like, if we want to keep it real, let's keep it real. I know I'm a human. Okay. But it hurts me when I hear kids say that, because they'll
That's
come to me
right.
and say, my teacher don't like me. And how do I respond to that? Because in my head, I'm thinking, well, it's not that they don't like you. It's some of the behaviors you're giving off, but kids are not going to understand that. But they know
Right.
automatically when you give off those signals, because some of us tend to say it out loud. Oh, I don't like you today. But instead of
Right.
us making sure that we're separating the behavior from the student, and we're not
Come on
adequately
now.
doing that.
That's right. That's
We're
right.
not adequately doing that. And I mean, again, I know it's a lot. I know everybody's going, we can say all of the things. We're going through a lot. Teachers have this to deal with. Educators, we don't get paid enough. Like, we can say those things, but if that's the case, then this may not be for
For you.
you right now at this moment. And
That's right.
that's just real.
That's right.
But I hope that the lens that you and I look through with our kids in relation to, the kids that we get to teach is the same. Like, I just want people to understand, like, that's a lot. It's a heavy load to bear. But when you come back to the why and understand that is a privilege, I think it changes, or has the ability to change people's perspective and how they deal with kids. And I'm not saying ignore behaviors and things like that.
No,
This
no,
has
not at all.
to change the perspective in how you deal with certain kids.
Right. And I do know, I have seen it, and even I've been guilty of it myself. Microaggressions with, like you said, little comments and things, eye rolls. Oh God, that heavy sigh when that kid
Mhm.
shows up that you thought wasn't going to be in class that day.
And they always
And
there.
yeah, they always show up. They're just late sometimes. But honestly, I remember something from a kid that, because I was that child, I had so much going on. So I was extremely behavioral. And in kindergarten, this was the funniest thing. My mom there was stuff going on.
Yep.
And my grandmother, I ended up at my grandmother on a weekend. And then my mom didn't show up with my school clothes or whatever. And then my grandmother like called her and said, I need something for her to go to school because she's going to go to school.
Mm-hmm.
And so she took me, and I was late. And I can remember the class was out for recess, and the teacher audibly said, Oh my God, I thought she wasn't going to be here today.
Oh, wow.
Do you know I still remember that? At
Right.
61 years old, I still remember that.
Right.
Now, I don't know, I couldn't tell you what the woman looked like now because it's been so many years. I can't tell you anything but how she treated me.
Right.
And every teacher that did something to me like that, one who broke a yardstick across my legs, because I come from that generation where they
Absolutely. You got the
whooped
paddle.
behind, and
Yep.
you got paddled or hit or knuckles smacked with
Yep.
the ruler, whatever. And so I went through all of that, and in doing so, I realized that, oh my God, I that has a lasting impression. A
That's
kid will carry that with them forever. So, personally, what I can say is that our kiddos, like you said, they don't show up with any intent, any malintent. They just show up.
mm-hmm.
You Um, so, my next question: What do adults often misunderstand about middle school students and their behavior? And I know we're touching on it just a little bit.
Yeah. So I think the misunderstanding is, so let's think about the things that we can see, right? Middle school students look grown. Okay. They come with these big bodies. They talk grown. Okay. And they act like they don't care, but underneath they are learning and they don't even know that they're learning, I should say. They're learning to manage their emotions. They're learning to manage their reactions. They're learning how to manage conflict. And the misunderstanding for us is that they already know what to do. They should already know.
That part.
They know better than this. And I'm like, in a sense, yes, do our kids inherently know right from wrong? They do. Okay. They know that, okay, if I go to the bathroom, like in this day and age, if I go to the bathroom, I'm not supposed to be on my phone. They know that. Okay. Yeah. But when we're thinking about middle school students, they're looking for instant gratification. They don't care about the consequence. If there's even gonna be a consequence, they know, you know what, I gotta check. I check my notification real quick. I gotta check my phone. I gotta text my friend. Nobody's ever gonna know. And they get in the bathroom and they're in there for
7 minutes later.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. 7 minutes later, which feels like, you know, to them a very short time. But when you're in the classroom,
to us it's an eternity.
Absolutely. That can turn, we know, like I like to feel like, because that's my job, I like to feel that when I walk in my job, it's the safest place in the world because I work there, right? But we know we do live in a day and age where things can turn on a dime. And like I remember having my very first experience as a teacher of record. We had a drill. It was a lockdown drill. Okay. And it was a drill. We knew that it was planned. And I had told students, you know, this is what to expect, blah, blah, blah. We had went through all the motions, right? And the lockdown drill went, it was over. 15 minutes later, the bell came on again. Okay. And they were like, lockdown, 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 lights out of sight. So I'm like, I had my parent in the room and I'm like, what are they talking? We just did the drill. And then they came back on. And they were like, this is not a drill, lockdown. So I'm freaking out because I'm like,
oh, wow.
Okay,
yeah.
This was a real drill. Something was going on in the neighborhood, okay, where the schools had to be locked down. And it was not like they say, this is not a, you know, what they say, like this is for real. This was a for real situation.
Right.
And I had a student out of the room. Had a student out of the room. That student that always need to go to the bathroom.
That's right.
Okay. And all I could hear was the knock on the door. Oh. And I said, oh my God.
That student didn't get swept?
That was the thing. I had already swept, okay, in that moment. And this was a student who was known to go into the bathroom and be doing the things.
Mm-hmm.
They heard the alarm. All I can do is think of, they were thinking that, well, we just did the drill, right? You know, so in their head, they're not thinking. And again, no matter how we prep our students for these emergencies, things happen, right? But I had already swept, but I'm looking out because I'm still trying to, my body's still trying to catch up from, we just had a drill that was planned. Now we're in a real emergency. I have a student who's out of the room. And for those of the people who are listening that are not educators, like those are real feelings and emotions.
Absolutely.
You know, when that happens, you're thinking of all of the things, trying to keep yourself safe so you can go home, trying to keep the students safe. Oh my God, I got a kid out. And I got to figure out so the kid ended up getting swept in a classroom that was closer to the restroom.
Which it should be, right?
Which it should be. So protocol was followed. But in that moment, like that was scary. That was scary. And at that moment, that's when, you know, like I talk about systems a lot. That's when my system for the bathroom, that whole thing changed.
Yes.
That whole thing changed.
Yes.
You got a timer. I put the timer on the board. You better check before the timer goes off. Now, if you need a little extra time because TMI, okay. But on a normal, you know what I'm saying, thing, I need to back in class. Yeah, that was really scary. That was really scary.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And those are the types of things that we go through as teachers that parents don't even know. And let me just say, it's not even just teachers, it's bus drivers, it's cafeteria workers. I want to give a shout out to everyone who shows up to serve kids because their jobs are stressful. The bus driver, I don't even know. I don't even know how he does it. I can't, how he or she does it because they can act out, they can fight, all kinds of things can happen on a bus, and you're responsible for moving a vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
That's
I mean, I have so many stories even about bus drivers. Like my husband right now is driving the bus, and he and I have had conversations, about what that looks like, discipline and everything on the bus. And, like you're saying, he says the same thing. Like, I have this however many 1,000-pound vehicle it is that I'm in charge of, but then I got all of these little bodies on the bus who don't understand getting on the bus and sitting in your seat, no feet in the aisleway, no standing, turning around. Like, those are things that are important and in place for a reason. So having that perspective, now him come home and say the things that he's saying as an administrator, and I'm kind of changing the things a little bit, because as an administrator, again, like what happens in your classroom, I don't see that side of it. I see the after effect. But the same thing comes when the bus driver has a complaint, or the bus driver has discipline or a fight on the bus, because that bus driver is doing their job. But now I have to listen to the perspective and kind of assign a judgment of, what do I do with this student in terms of discipline? Because that's an enormous safety concern to have something on the bus, because you're not jeopardizing just yourself, you're jeopardizing everybody else who's on the bus.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And then if the bus driver makes a decision, I remember even in school where the behaviors were so bad on the back of the bus that this was a city bus, because where I went, we didn't have the school bus. We took the city bus home. And I mean, there were school buses, but where I lived, I took the city bus. Anyway, there was a lot of kids on this bus. This is a public transportation driver. And he's like, I'm not, He skipped my stop and several and took us all the way downtown to the transit center and said, now your parents can come pick you up from downtown. Yep. Or you can get on another bus and go home. But he would not stop. He said, I'm going back to the transit center, because the kids would not stop their shenanigans. Right. And that now what happens, of course, I get home late. I was not one of those kids. My mom blew a gasket, was calling the city transit people, going off on all these people. That driver made a decision. And he made a decision for the safety of all. Because by him redirecting and saying, I'm not going to stop, now, guess what? Fight's over. Now everybody's like, oh my God, I'm not going to get home, or how am I going to get home, or what's going to happen? Yep. So I understand now, as in the position I'm in now, why he did what he did. Right. But my mama did not understand. Right. My mama said, I don't care what was going on. He needed to stop and let you off that bus. But the after effect, or the other side of that, what would happen if he didn't? Right. Right. Or a catastrophic situation. There would have been the potential for, somebody to really get injured. Yep. Yeah, because a fight can turn really bad on in a bus. And so, but those, again, I just want our listeners to understand, there are so many facets to being a classroom teacher and or anyone else that services at a school. And it is so often I read comments. I have to stop, as they call doom scrolling. Yes. I got to stop it, because I see these negative comments and I sometimes take it to heart. Yep. I take it personal. I'm like, you don't understand what it's like. Now, on the other side, and this is why you do what you do, and I do what I do. On the other side, there are educators who are missing the mark, who need to do better, who need to show up better. And I personally, I'm not administrator, but I'm a team leader, because we're in teams. And as a team leader, and I work with the teachers that I work with, I am always faced with kids coming to me with their side of the story. Mm-hmm. And then, because usually they've been sent, I'm everybody's buddy teacher. So it's okay, that's all good. That's all right. I'm not going to respond to that one, but okay. Everybody's buddy teacher. So go to Lyons. Go to Lyons. I'm mad at you. You know what? Now. I am. You go ahead. I am going to respond to that. I got something. I want you to. No, go ahead. You respond to that. So here's the thing about buddy teachers.
I don't, even as an administrator, I don't particularly care for that practice because I was the buddy teacher as well. You know, you're gonna put me in Miss Seabrooks class. I know you're gonna put me in Miss Seabrooks class. However, I just based off of our conversations previous together, I guarantee that when those students did come to our room, they got something that they were missing. Like you're asking,
Yes.
what's missing in some of the educators, and what is the skill? I guarantee, one, you coming into my room, I'm not re-traumatizing you. Okay.
Right.
I'm not in
That's
your
for
face
sure.
talking about what did you do? Why did you do this? Why did you sit? No, you know what? Go have a seat. You know what I'm saying?
That's right.
Because your nervous system as a student needs time to get in check.
Got to
Okay.
dysregulate. Absolutely.
And that may be the system that's needed for that other teacher, right? They may need that moment. I just don't particularly care for sometimes the one disruptive student coming into another classroom, because there is the propensity for that student to continue a disruption in the second classroom, right?
You better believe it.
But I've often had those students come to my room, and because I've taken the time out to get to the root cause. Now, Johnny, why would you say that? Why would you say that to Miss Lyons? Why would you do that?
Right.
And now Johnny's gonna actually tell me why, and the why. I'm not excusing the why, right? But he's actually gonna tell me, well, I really wasn't trying to talk, but I needed to find out what page we were on.
Exactly.
But all you see is that he's turned around again, and maybe the 3 times before he might have been talking. But that one time, that's why I tell kids, okay, the teacher may not have said something to you the 5 times that you were doing what it was that you knew you were supposed to be doing, right? But then the 6th time that she say something, now you want to have a problem with it. You know, so we hold students accountable in that respect. And then going back to the skill that's missing, it's just being able to kind of pause and say, okay, you know what? You knew you weren't supposed to be doing that, but is there something that you need, right? And we're human, you know, we're human. I don't mean that you do that all the time, because the classroom, we know the classroom it's running. It's 100 miles an hour. It's going. And so a lot of the things that we probably need to do get overlooked because we're in a time crunch. But I'll say this. I learned over time. It was something that I developed over time. Just pausing, you know, and just taking a beat. You know, I know I got to get through this curriculum. I know my administrator getting ready to come in here. They're going to be on my head. I know my objectives got to be there. My I can statement, my learning intention, my success criteria. I didn't say this, I didn't say that. But just pausing sometime. Because you know all the things, right?
Right. Even well, and I'm going to tell you, I don't care. I don't care about all those things. And I know I'm saying that live. If the success criteria is on the board, or whatever you want me to put on the board, I'm going to put it on the board.
Yep.
But my first priority is my student. Absolutely. Always. You can walk in my room, you can look at me, you can stroll around my room. I don't care.
Yep.
And I'm going to be the same Lyons with or without you in the room. I had to learn that. I don't have that stress. I don't worry about it. You know what? Because your kids are looking at you. They see you. They see your behavior. Now, if you're code switching because an administrator walked in, what are you telling your students? You're telling them you're fake.
You saying something right now. It's just Sunday. They be preaching today.
I know. I'm trying to tell you. Yeah, you can't code switch. Kids will call you out on it. They see it. And the other thing is that, you know, and I've had kids do funny things like whip out, back in the day. Now they won't do that now. But when I first started teaching, whip out the cell phone. You know, just when somebody came in to observe me, just to see my response. And I had a principal, and I may have told you this already, but I had a principal once, because my very first teaching years was on the reservation, Gila River, and in community. Shout out to the community. Love being in Gila River. Love Grick. But that's how I learned to teach. And the kids, they did all kinds of things. But those same kids that did all kinds of things that may have sent me home the first couple years crying, they named me Mama Lyons. That's where
Yeah.
the name comes from, my students. And I learned because I learned to be like a mama to them. And that was more important to them. It's really about your kiddos. They act out, they shut down, they can be difficult, all of those things. But before we respond, we have to consider some things, right?
Yeah.
We have to. And we have to be able to separate their behavior from them,
Yep.
who they are as children,
Yep.
and remind yourself that they are children and that you were once a child or
Mm-hmm.
you have a child. You got to do in that split second, because it's only a few moments to
That's it.
reflect,
That's all it takes.
right? And how you respond. Have we not made mistakes? Have you not made mistakes? Oh, I know
Yep.
I have.
Yep.
I know I have. I know I've made mistakes and I've had to come back. And one of the, I think, most beautiful thing is to apologize to a kid.
That part.
It opens up a relationship like none other.
That part. I think that even like, because that shows your vulnerability, because like you said, like we're in the moment, we're with our students, and none of these things that we're saying right now has to be a perfect science. It doesn't have to be
That's
perfect.
right.
Because
That's
we're individuals. We all have our different DNAs and the way that we're made up. So we are going to make mistakes. But like you said, I learned one of the biggest ways that I could get buy-in and just, students to kind of endear themselves to me was to be, oh, my bad, I made a mistake,
That's right.
Or if there was a situation where I lost my cool, because I'm not saying that I'm perfect and I have never lost my cool, because I have, but I have had to humble myself and come back and say, you know what, I was wrong for that. I should not have XYZ. And this is how I felt in the moment. Right. And some people, because they feel this authority that they have as regardless of whether or not it's a teacher or you're an administrator, like this authority entitles you to this respect. And I'm sorry, it does not. One of the things that I do not do is weaponize my authority against students. I don't do that. They know who I am. I don't need to walk around. I'm the assistant principal. You better listen. I don't need to do that.
Right.
I don't need to do that because my connections that I make with the students speak for themselves. Am I saying that they're outliers? There absolutely are outliers. Okay. But guess what? There's outliers in our adult world.
Absolutely.
In our workplaces. Okay.
Absolutely.
Because guess what? We don't get along with everybody, but we don't want to say that. But we want to tell kids, oh, you need to get along. You need to work together. You need to listen to each other. You need to do that. But down the hall, you and Sue can't stand each other.
Period.
What are we really modeling? However, I'll say this: the modeling part is when I see Sue, I'm gonna walk past her and say, "Hey, how you doing today? Good to see you," and I'm gonna keep it moving. You know what I mean? And but you gotta get there to that point, like you said, being vulnerable, being able to look back and say, I made a mistake, I said something wrong, and modeling for our kids. That's healthy conflict resolution skills.
Absolutely.
They don't come equipped, they don't come to the 6th grade with that. They don't come to the 7th grade with it. They have to be taught. And again, I'm not saying that this is all on our shoulders as educators. It's not. It's a village. It takes a village. We have to go back to that statement. It takes a village for us to be able to put these soft skills into play that I feel like in some way between the years, soft skills just got erased,
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think emphasis on curriculum, emphasis on pacing guide. Let's get through this. Another thing that I struggle with sometimes is I'm not speeding up because I'm not trying to get to the end of the book. Right. I'm trying to teach them standards. And it may take teaching something over and over. But something you said I want to go back to that is so important. There's this really, really cool word called connection. Connection. Yes. Because, and I don't know, for any new educators, especially coming on, if you don't spend time each year building a connection with your students, I don't care if there's 35, I've had as many as 38 in my classroom. I don't care how many there are, you have to find a way to connect.
Yes.
There are tools, there are games that you can gamify it. You can do whatever you need to
Yes.
do. You want to make up handshakes at the door, whatever. But do something to make a connection with each individual child. And that to me is half of the battle.
Yes.
Because the more you know, now I personally have students write me a letter every the first week of what you should know about me that no one else needs to know.
Love that.
And they send, and it's a private, this is a private letter, and there's a promise to never share what those letters say with anyone.
Love
This is
that.
between me and them. And this is where I get the bulk of my information. And even though they're brand new to me, they often will say, you need to know this. You need to know that I cannot sit in the front of the room because I have anxiety.
See?
You need to know that please don't raise your voice at me because there's so much yelling at home. I can't come to
Yes.
school and handle it.
Yes. Yes.
You need
That
to know.
those
There's
things
so
make
many things.
all of the difference when
Mhm.
you're at least, so we're getting to the beginning of the school year, right?
Right.
And I often like to parallel like the classroom and the campus to a work environment. Just think about how much more connected and safe you feel when the person who is supervising you just ask you, how do you want to be addressed? What's, do you want me to publicly,
Right.
praise you, things like that? Because I
Right.
remember putting out a survey, and I learned it in my first year of like teacher school, if you will, and they called it funds of knowledge. And I
Mhm.
did that every single year. I also sent one home
Mhm.
for parents, so parents could tell me some information
Right.
about their kids, because connection is so important. Like just going back to like the example that I gave about like having a coworker named Sue. I don't want to come and work for somebody that I don't have a connection with. Now, let's not confuse that with we got to be friends. We all don't have to be friends. Oh, I don't come to work to make friends. That might be true. But
No.
when you walk in the door, you at least want to know that there's some camaraderie there. There's some type of something, right? And how do you get that with your coworkers, your supervisor, your boss, whatever, if there's not that connection that has intentionally been built? So the same thing needs to happen in your classroom, because our middle school
Right.
students, we know they're going to push the boundaries with us, but they still need us as the adults to show up, be steady, okay, and be willing to look past their mistakes, not come in the next day with the chip still on our shoulders because we mad about what you did yesterday, right? Because
Oh yeah,
again,
it starts over. Don't come back with something
there
from
we
the day because the
go.
kids definitely don't. You can
Yeah,
put them out in the room. You can do all kinds of things. The next day, it's like a whole new. It's like it never happened with them. They
yep,
bounce back so much quicker.
yep.
So no, yeah, you're absolutely right about that. And I do know teachers and adults who hold grudges and who remember and things where students may have really disrespected them. I know I've
Mhm.
been disrespected
Yeah,
by a student,
absolutely.
and it's I my trick with that has always been to lean in closer to that kid.
Yes,
The ones that are the most
yes.
difficult are the ones that I seek information. I want to know more about, and I
Mhm,
also I'm in their face a little bit more, but not in a negative way, but in a positive
mhm,
way. And I
mhm.
can tell you, I see those faces over the years in my mind right now, and all of them by the end of the year, they didn't want to leave. They didn't want to leave me.
Right.
They didn't want to leave. And I think about how um, precious their hearts are. Like there's something underneath that behavior. There's something going on,
It
and
always
if
is.
only we could figure that out.
Mhm.
If we could figure it out. Um, you say you talk about middle school being messy. Um, how does a school culture calm the mess or make it worse? The overall school culture.
So talking about the school culture, because the school culture is an overarching theme to your classroom culture, right?
Right, right.
So there is, consistency, there's routines, there's expectations in your classroom that extend out, okay? And then your school culture technically tends to extend in, okay, into your classroom. And when the adults are inconsistent, that has the ability to make the mess. Okay.
Yep.
So if I know that I've got, like you said, eighth grade, right? If I know that my students are going from my eighth grade math class to your eighth grade ELA class, and I say, well, you know what? You can just take your phones out for a second.
Oh.
Okay? They go to your class and you got little Johnny. We're going to bring little Johnny back into the chat, right? You got little Johnny, and little Johnny's like, Miss Seabrooks told me I could use my phone. Why, Mama Lyons, why you tripping? Right?
Right.
They're going to sniff the inconsistency out real quick, like a bloodhound, right? That is the quickest crack in the foundation of school culture, because it's inconsistent. Now there's a disconnect between the student and you, but now there's a disconnect between me and you, because you're like, oh my God, every time those students go to her class, she let them do this, she let them do that, blah, 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 right?
Happens all the time.
Here's the other now, Miss Seabrooks, she take a vacation every now and then, okay? Because we have to, I like to say, prepare to others is what PTO stands for, okay?
Yeah.
Others. So Miss Seabrooks going on her vacation, and I've got all of these inconsistencies happening in my classroom, but guess who's going to walk in my classroom? A guest sub. Okay?
That's right.
They're not going to know all of the little nuances. And maybe I actually am able to control this cell phone issue a little bit. I still shouldn't be doing it, but maybe I'm able to have some control because I have a different type of connection. What's going to happen is my students are going to go ham and cheese with some pickles on the side with this guest teacher, because that person does not know what's happening. Now, I have mistakenly allowed that guest teacher to walk into a situation that really and truly they should not be walking into.
A time bomb. It's horrible.
A very ticking time bomb. So when we think about 180 days of school, and that one small inconsistency that's going to trickle down, and it's going to make a snowball that's going to turn into an avalanche. And now at the end of the year, little Johnny is cussing out everybody because all he just wants to do is text his mom and tell his mom, I got practice today. And Miss Seabrooks always lets me text my mom and use my phone. But this guy is like, he crashing out. And again, I don't think that teachers do that intentionally with the premise of let me just set the whole school off. I don't think that that's what it is, but that's why the consistency is important, because like I said, it has the ability to turn your school culture into such a mess. You can't return from that. You can't.
Yeah, no, and that's probably one of the biggest issues that you will have from colleague to colleague in the school system is the inconsistency. And especially like we're set up in teams, as I've stated. So you have your core teachers in a team. And for those listeners who aren't educators, that's your math, your English, your social studies, and your science. Well, we're all in a team, and the kids are pretty much staying in our pod unless they have to go to electives, their music, their PE, or those things.
I love that.
And within our pod, we have to have set rules. Every classroom functions the same. And we're very much so sticklers of that. So if I say, when you come in my room, your backpack goes in that bin, all the other teachers' backpacks have to go someplace too. Now, as the team leader, if I walk in one of my other rooms and there's backpacks at the desk with the students, who am I looking at? It's not the kids.
Exactly.
I'm looking at that teacher like, did something happen where they forget to put their backpacks away? What's going on?
Because that little, like you said, that little bitty thing, that's a routine. And I'm like, when I think about like one of the reasons why, let's just go here, like state testing. You know what I'm saying? We don't allow backpacks. Like the school that I work at doesn't even allow backpacks in the building. Okay. But previously, backpacks go against the wall, phones are turned off and things like that. When you set that expectation at the beginning of the year, you don't have to do so much of this getting ready for testing, because it's already, the expectation is already there. I know when I walk in the room, we're state testing this week. My backpack goes here. I don't need nothing out of it during the test because, there's not
There's
an
nothing.
argument that needs to occur because we've already front loaded that information.
Absolutely. And yet you'll still have a kid that manages to somehow have their body somewhere. I'm like, there's some crevices or something that phones are, because I have each year had at least one student that I've had to test violate because
Ooh.
they had their phone.
Oh,
And it just blows my mind how many times you repeat it, how many times you say it. It doesn't matter.
Yes.
But again, as you said in the beginning of this whole thing, they're kids. And their brains they got lizard brains at times. They're going to do what they do.
Yep.
And so as the adults, we always have to own things, because at the end of the day, we're the ones with the routine. We're the ones with the systems. We're the ones that have to make sure that they're enforced. And the way to enforce them is, like you said, let's be consistent.
Yes.
Because if you're not consistent, that crack is going to turn into a Grand Canyon. It's a big deal. It's a big deal. Yeah. So we understand what the mess is in messy, right? We get it. And that mess, educators, administrators, anyone, and so in the comments there was a mention of, let's not forget athletic coaches. So
absolutely.
Yeah, coaches too. They dealing with them on the field.
They do.
But the truth of the matter is, every single person that shows up for kids in the school system has got the same thing. They need to also, follow some of the things we're talking about, because these things are real. It's that taking that moment to reflect, taking that time to really identify what is really going on here is so important.
Yes.
So I want to make sure that if there's any educator listening or someone who knows an educator, I want to talk about your book.
Mm-hmm.
Middle School is Messy: What Every Teacher, Parent, and Leader Should Know About the Middle Years. And I just want to talk about what made you decide to go ahead and write that book.
Oh man. It actually was a compilation of my notes. Like, I've been a journaler since I started in education. That was just a little tip that I got from my mentor, was like, keep a journal, and we're not talking about incidental notes or anything like that, for a student discipline, but just like what happened during the day, what did I feel, my lesson, how did it go, things like that. So even as a teacher, I kept a journal. And then when I became an administrator, I kept a journal. Now, when I became an administrator, those notes, it was a lot of WTF written in there, and it did not say Thursday, Friday. I'm just all the way real. It did not mean Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, because I was like, okay, what just happened here? I would be like at home, right? Like, I cannot believe what I experienced. And so I took those notes and I started like the book actually didn't start out as a book. It started out as just like a mini guide. It started out as a mini guide.
Okay.
And then when I started putting some more just thought into it, it became more. And so the book is written how I talk. It's more of a conversation, like the conversation that you and I are having.
Okay.
It reads like a conversation. I did not want another book full of the educational alphabet soup of acronyms that we have.
Right.
I wanted something real that was going to be able to speak to parents, leaders, and teachers about, our students and what it is that they go through. And so it brings a lot of my personal experiences in as a teacher, as an administrator. And again, like I said before, like the advocating for the middle grades, because you get a lot of support in early childhood. You get a lot of support on the other side with college and career. Absolutely. But there's still this gap that exists in the middle school area where, because like you talked about earlier, why did I want to do this? And I said, because I know that there's a gap, but I was scared. So the transformation from me becoming, so I was an elementary school teacher, middle school administrator, but the transformation for me was that I knew that These people were my tribe. I call them my people because they are my people. Like, I speak their language. And I knew they needed a guide to help the adults that supervise them in a different way.
Yeah.
It needed to be a conversation. It needed, like, we can take this book and we can have coffee and we can talk about this all day, because it's not discussed enough from the perspective of what the students need, nor the
Right.
adults that supervise the
Right.
students in this developmental area. Because you have to be a special type of person. I'm not saying a different person. You just have to be a special type of person, because you have to understand, like we've said so many times on this podcast, that they are human. They're going to make mistakes. And I
Absolutely.
think, like, messy, actually, it's an acronym that I came up with. It's moments of emotion, struggle, strength, and youth. So it stands for something. And it's a
Ah,
healthy balance. So you got those moments of emotion, because we know we're going to have them, right? You have your struggle, because what's middle school without a struggle? But then there's the balance of strength that comes along, because you get to see them grow along the way. And there's just this youthful piece that kind of wraps it all together.
I
And
love that.
that's why I say middle school is messy, but it's manageable. I knew that somebody going through the bookshelves was going to be like, middle school is messy. Well, I need to know what that's going on. Because why would I just, a book about, here's another book about middle school? No, because I like to be different. First of all, I like to be different. But I
I
was like,
love it.
about middle school, we don't need another book about middle school. We need a book about having a conversation with anybody that has middle school students, supervises them, or whatever it is. Athletic coach is not going to leave y'all out either. What can we expect, right?
Right.
In those years. And I honestly feel like the personal part of me that wanted to write it was because I've always wanted to write a book.
Yes.
It's just been something that I wanted to do. And I was like, this is the perfect time to do this, because this is me, boots on the ground. I'm not writing this from,
Right.
I've
Right.
been out of the game for 20 years. I'm in the game. I'm
You're
boots on
in
the
it.
ground with everybody. You know what I'm
That's right.
saying?
That's right.
So this is firsthand perspective of the things that I experienced, and also some of the lived experiences of people that I talk to, like yourself, on a
Yes.
day-to-day basis. So
Yes.
in a nutshell, how we got
Well,
to school is messy.
I am so thrilled to know you, and I know we're going to partner. I know we're going to collaborate.
Yes.
I am looking forward to it. We talk about my people. We are each other's tribe for
Yes.
sure.
Yes.
Very, very excited. Thank you for coming on, for sharing your knowledge, your experience, and keeping it real. I
Yes.
think that this is something that parents, if you you're trying to figure out, what do teachers do? Because I hear that all the time. Well, what do they do? There's a lot. Just pay attention,
Ooh.
right? And understand. And it is so we are counselors, therapists, we're all kinds of we're doctors, we're everything. I mean, how many band-aids do I have? I don't know.
Listen.
Okay, maybe not doctors. I'm not a doctor. I don't want to be a doctor. But I can tell you that there's a whole bunch of boo-boos that get covered with band-aids from my
Yeah.
desk. There's a whole bunch of a lot of things going on. It's whatever it takes to positively pour into someone's child, to
Yes.
be there for them, their safety for, several hours out of the day. We are there and they're with us while parents are working, trying to earn a
Right.
living to keep a roof over their heads. And we do it with love and compassion. And
Yes.
if we don't, then we need to be finding a new career.
Yes. Like
Yeah.
you said earlier, the negative comments, like I could feed into the negative comments all day. You see
Right.
them.
Right.
But I choose not to. I
Right.
choose not to, because I feel like if I'm going to go into this environment and it's going to consistently be negative, I don't need to be in this environment. As the
Right.
adult and in control of my life, and I have the power over myself, I can remove myself and just
That's
do
right.
something else. Because why would I want to go into a place that I'm unhappy, that I know that we know that things are broken? We know this.
That's
You
right.
know,
That's
we
right.
know this. Is it going to get fixed overnight? It's not. But I
No.
feel like my one little bitty little body walking into the school every day, that I'm going to be that fix for that
It's
student that
systemic.
day.
That's right. It's way above us. It's systemic. It's on a
Yes.
national level. It's not, but at the same time, children need to be educated. And I'm a big fan of public education for the simple fact that everybody's child deserves an
Yes.
education, not just everybody's child.
Everybody.
So we could go and go and go and go for
We
this.
know.
I know we could, but we've gone slightly over an hour,
No
and
worries.
I appreciate anyone and everyone who's listened. Please like this conversation wherever you're watching it, whether it's Facebook, Twitch, LinkedIn, YouTube. Share it with someone, especially if you know at least. I want to challenge listeners if you know at least one educator, a person who works in the school system,
Yes.
share this with them if you hear it. And I thank everyone who's paying attention to what we're saying, because this is a critical time. It
Mhm.
really is. It is very important. But Kylah, I'm going to have you on again. And I know we're going to continue
I
this.
will be
Uh,
thrilled.
but thank you so much. I really, really appreciate you. And to our listeners, thank you. It's another wrap for another week. And I'll see everyone next week with Voices of Resilience. All right.
Absolutely. Thank
There
you.
it is. Thank you.